Perfect. Just before the presentation, a quick presentation of myself. I am a security engineer at Taurus with a focus on blockchain technology and smart contract development. And before that, I made a bachelor in the security department in the engineering school here. So I put the logo of the CTF club here. So, firstly, a quick introduction to blockchain technology. So blockchain is a distributed ledger, generally open with no central entity. So what does it mean? It means, contrary to the financial bank system, you don't have a bank to issue credit and debit card. With a decentralized system, you have no central entity to create an account, to manage account, and so on. So the solution here is to use a public key cryptography. Typically, one of the main algorithms used is elliptic curve digital signature algorithm. And with this algorithm, we have two main keys, a public key and a private key. The public key is used to reserve assets, and if we compare with a financial system, it's similar to an IBAN. And a private key is used to send assets and make a proof of ownership of your funds. So it's similar to a debit or a credit card with your code PIN. So here, a simplified version of the key generation. So in general, we generate a random number, and this random number is converted to a seed phrase, so a list of words. And from this seed phrase, we will use a key derivation function, typically ppkdf2, to derive a master private key. And from this master private key, we will derive several different private keys. And for each private key, we will have several public keys. And for each public key, we will derive several public address through hash function and encoding. Sorry. So here, a basic workflow of a transaction. So if a user wants to send funds to someone else, it will create a transaction, sign it with its private key, and set it to the blockchain. And the blockchain network is responsible to check the signature by using the public key. So all these different tasks are really complicated for a simple user. So in general, we will use a crypto wallet. And a crypto wallet has 4 main tasks. The first one is to provide the product to the end user. The second is to generate the seed phrase and the different private keys. Then is to store the seed phrase and the private keys. And finally, in general, a user wants to interact with this decentralized application and send the fund to someone else. So it's a last task. So we have different types of wallet. In my presentation, I will explain mainly 3 types of wallet. So a smart contract wallet. Smart contract wallet is a program which runs on the blockchain. And since it's run on the blockchain, it's always connected to internet. So it's considered as a hot wallet. Then we have a software wallet. These wallets are installed in a device used in everyday life, typically a browser extension, a mobile wallet, or a desktop wallet. And since they are installed on a device used in everyday life, they are connected to internet when the device is used. So it's considered as a warm wallet. And finally, we have an hardware wallet. And an hardware wallet is a specific and separate device. So it's considered as a cold storage. So here we have a schema with the different type of wallet. So for an hardware wallet, the user will generate and choose a PIN, and this PIN will be used by the device to encrypt the seed phrase and store it encrypted inside the device. Then the user will use software provided by the manufacturer to interact and with the blockchain. So in general, the software will send a request to the device, and the device will sign it and send the request sign to the computer. Then, for extension or mobile wallet, the user will generate or choose a passphrase, and this passphrase is used to encrypt the seed phrase inside the application, and then the encrypted seed phrase is stored on the device. And finally, for a smart wallet, the funds will be owned by the smart contract on the blockchain, and generally we will have a multi-sig system or MPC solution to manage the wallet. So for the first task, to provide the product to the end user, For an hardware wallet, the main vulnerability or threat is a temporary device with a malicious firmware typically. So in general, this malicious device can be sold on an online marketplace or through a supply chain attack. And for a software wallet, in general, it's a malicious extension. So a malicious extension can be found on an official store, the Apple Store, Google Play, and so on, a FAQ website, or by compromission, or with an official website compromised. So for a software wallet, typically here we have a FAQ extension available on the Apple Store. So it concerns the Ruby wallet, a browser extension wallet. And at the time of the attack, an official version for Apple Store was under review by Apple but not published. And the attacker published the malicious version on the Apple Store. And a lot of people have thought it was the official one because the app was under review. And around 40,000 worth of crypto were stolen with this attack. And we have seen also another similar attack generated a lot of more money stolen by targeting a FAQ Ledger Live app. So let's stay here. Another possibility is to publish a malicious ad on Google. And basically, if the user click on the ad, it will be redirected to the malicious website. So in the picture here, the first result is a malicious application, and the second result is the official application. So if the user click on the ads, it will be redirected to a similar website. And then if he decides to install the application and use it as a wallet, we will have two possibilities in general for the attacker. The first one, when the user decides to import an external private key to inside the wallet, the private key will be transmitted to a server managed by the attacker. The other possibility is if the user wants to create a new wallet, and in this case, the wallet created will be the seed phrase and private key will be transmitted to the server, also transmit to the server, or sometimes the attacker decide to store on the malicious application several pre-generated private keys, and the attacker can know all of them, so it can take all the funds. So for an hardware wallet, Trezor, one of the main wallet use, put several protection in place. So the first one is to have a seal on the device or on the package, and a legitimate device will always arrive without a firmware install. And when you decide to use the device the first time, the bootloader will check if the firmware you install has been signed by Satoshi Lab, the company behind the wallet. It's similar to a secure boot. And as a new measure, individual chips are now glued on the board. So here you have some picture, and if it's a malicious firmware or a non-signed firmware, the device will show warning. And in 2022, some fake Trezor were sold on the Russian market through a popular website. And the reason why this country was used is because Trezor is not officially present on this country. So the attacker performed several different modifications. The first one is they install a malicious firmware in the device. And then to avoid the warning, they remove the bootloader check to avoid detection at startup. And finally, they replace the randomly generated seed phrase with a pre-generated seed phrase saved in the malicious firmware. So here we have a picture of the Trezor, and we can see there is no warning on the device. And if we take the FAQ device, we can see there are a lot of modifications on the device to remove the bootloader, to store the pre-generated seed phrase. So it's the reason why now they glue the chip on the board, in the board. So now I will. So I just I've lost one of my slides, but so to protect against this, yes, as I can see, they have used glue the different chip on the board. typically. So now I will pass to the next point to generate the seed phrase and the private keys. So for this, we have, in general, we have three main types of vulnerabilities, randomness, a protocol implementation or a configuration, and for each kind of threat, I will show you an example. So for the randomness, Bitcoin JS was a popular package used for browser-based crypto wallet. And the vulnerability concerned wallet generated by this package and derivative project between 2011 and 2015. And the vulnerability was discovered the first time in 2018 and again in 2022 by Unciphered, a cryptocurrency recovery company. And from what I know, no funds have been stolen. So the library uses a random function, a secure random, and this function is secure to generate a pseudo-random number that qualify for use in cryptography. So it's cool and very good. But this function relies on the browser function window.crypto.random, and this function was only implemented in Netscape Navigator. And for all other navigators, typically Firefox or Google Chrome or Microsoft Edge, the function files silently and instead use a map random, which is not qualified to generate a pseudo-random number, so it's possible to brute force and guess the private key. And modern wallet now they use Web Crypto API with typically the function get random values. So now I will show you an example for a protocol implementation. So IOTA was a blockchain which uses Winternitz as the main signature sham for the blockchain. And Winternitz, it's considered as a post-quantum secure because it is based on hash function. And to use this algorithm, they designed their own hash function curl based on the response construction. And they also use it to hash the message before using Winternitz. But curl was vulnerable to collision attack through differential cryptanalysis, and it's a null technique used against block cipher with, for example, no attack against field, popularized in the 1990s. And using this collision attack, it's possible to forge valid signature. So the context to use differential cryptanalysis is a chosen text attack. So it means, for example, an attacker creates two payments, a benign payment and a malicious payment. And a signature on the benign payment by the target is also a valid signature on the malicious payment made by the attacker. So it's mainly an attack on multi-signature payments because one user must produce a payment for another user to sign. And the reaction from the foundation behind the blockchain, so according to them, the vulnerability was difficult to exploit in practice, notably because of the chosen plaintext condition, and also notably due to the presence of a coordinator. It's a centralized black box component managed by the foundation and use it to validate the transaction before sending them to the network. Nevertheless, they switch for another hash function curl based on Keccak, and now the blockchain don't use any longer Winternitz, but another algorithm. So now I will show you an example of a bad configuration, the case of Slope wallet on the Solana blockchain, with 9,000 wallet as a victim for about 4 million stolen. So what happened? Slope wallet was a self-custodial wallet, so it means the seed phrase is stored on the device. In this case, the mobile device. But they use Sentry to log events, and Sentry it's a tool to help a developer to find bugs, and it's really popular. But they log the seed phrase. So what happens? So as a summary, the Slope mobile app sends off the seed phrase through TLS to their centralized Sentry server. And also the seed phrase are then stored in plain text in this server, and anybody with access to Sentry could access the user seed phrase. So here you have a screenshot from a security company, and we can see in the request the seed phrase. So according to the post-mortem, we have three ways to secure the use of Sentry. The first one is to blacklist with automatic keyword filter. For example, blacklist the seed phrase. The second is to encrypt data transmitted to the server with TLS. And the last one is to encrypt the data on the server and use an access control. And for their case, they don't use a blacklist, so the seed phrase was sent to the server. And also, they don't encrypt the database. And probably an attacker managed to gain access to the server and gain access to all the seed phrase stored inside. So now I will pass to the third task, store the seed phrase and the associated private keys. So for a smart contract base wallet, it starts with this beautiful comment on GitHub. I accidentally killed it. So what happened? Until this year, the blockchain Ethereum allowed to remove code from the blockchain with a specific instruction called self-destruct. And the Parity wallet uses a library deployed on Ethereum for its wallet. So when a wallet owner wants to move funds from its wallet, they call a function execute, and this function will call another contract called the wallet library. And for the context, this library contains a self-destruct operation, stra function kill, and also this library did not have an admin configured. So what happened? Someone managed to take ownership of the library by just calling the function init on the smart contract. And then this person triggered the self-destruct operation by calling the function kill. So as a result, when a wallet owner wants to move its funds, it calls the function execute, but the contract has been removed from the blockchain, so the call fails. So it frees 500 multi-signature wallets for about 150 million worth of crypto at the time of the attack. So now it's clearly more. And if we want to restore the funds, it requires an hard fork, and it's complicated. So now I'll pass to another wallet. So this piece of code is from an old Trezor, and basically it checks if the pin entered by the user is equal to the pin stored in the device storage. And we have several implemented published by Ledger and Wallet.fl with this kind of code. So basically, in the while loop, we can see each pin is processed one by one. So it means it's possible to target each pin individually with a side channel attack. And also, we have also a subtraction operation. And with this subtraction operation, is also possible to perform a side channel attack to induce differentiability. So the goal is to measure the power of consumption of the device and see the difference when you have wrong pin and false pin. And also, Ledger uses machine learning to determine the most likely candidate for the subtraction operation. And they managed to recover the pin by performing the side channel attack. So to protect against this side channel attack, Trezor decided to create a more complicated setup. So when the user chooses enter the pin, we have a key derivation function and to create an encryption key. And this encryption key is used to encrypt the data with an authenticated encryption with associated data. So CHA20 and Poly. And this setup is more complicated to target with the chat channel. But in 2020, Trezor managed to perform an attack with a fault injection, and they managed to extract the entire flash content of the device. So since Trezor, as we can see in the previous slide, use an encrypted storage to store the seed phrase and so on, they use a script to brute force the pin of the doomed device. So to protect against this, you don't have a lot of possibility. Since it's a brute force attack, you can use a long pin. You can use a passphrase. A passphrase is used as an additional protection. It's only known by the user, so it's not stored on the device. So you cannot target it with a sentinel attack. And it is used as a sort of the key derivation function. And also a new device uses a secure element, and the setup is more complicated to target with a fault injection attack. And also, it's not possible to perform a brute force attack directly on the device, on the pin, because the storage is automatically wiped after 16 unsuccessful attempts. So it's the reason why the security team of Kraken use a fault injection attack to extract the entire flash content. So now I will pass to the last task, interact with a decentralized application. So now I will explain for a software wallet. So here, again, we have the IOTA blockchain, which has been targeted by a supply chain attack in 2020. And Trinity was a software wallet available on desktop and mobile phone managed by the foundation. And MoonPay is a third-party service used by the wallet to allow the user of the wallet to buy IOTA tokens inside the wallet. And in 2020, the Trinity wallet was attacked through a third-party dependency from MoonPay. So basically, the malicious SDK was loaded from MoonPay server. So the attacker managed to compromise the MoonPay server. And when the user unlocks its wallet with its passphrase inside the device, the malicious SDK sends the seed phrase and the passphrase to a server controlled by the attacker, so it can steal all the funds. So for another wallet, the list here, we have seen an attack targeting the Ledger Connect Kit. So Ledger offers Connect Kit. It's a JavaScript library to quickly install a Ledger button on a decentralized application to interact with the Ledger wallet. And the library is available through NPM. And also several decentralized applications don't store the package inside the front-end app, but download the latest version available from a CDN. So what happens? The attacker managed to compromise an NPM account of a former Ledger employee. And with this access, they deploy a malicious package on NPM instead of the official one. And the malicious package was Angel Drainer malware kit, a popular package to drain assets. Then, when the user go to the application downloads the malicious package from CDN. The malicious package replaces the legitimate transaction from the application by the malicious one from the package. And if the user signs the transaction, in short, the transaction sends all the assets to the attacker. So it was, the attack was quickly detected by different tools and users. Typically here you have a screenshot from Blockade, which show a warning. And Ledger quickly replaced the malicious version of NPM in 40 minutes, so it's really short. But with the caching mechanism in CDN, the malicious package remained active longer. So finally, what can you do as a user of a crypto wallet? So for the first task, provide the product. Only buy hardware on the official store. And for an application, double check between the store and the official website to avoid install a malicious application. And also, sorry Google, but don't click on Google Ads because even in this year you have a lot of attack which target, which use Google Ads to to provide fake software, fake application, and so on. And for the key generation and storage, always use a battle-tested crypto wallet with a verifiable source code. And for another wallet, use a passphrase and a long pin. And finally, to interact with decentralized application, use a separate wallet for frequent trading and use. So one wallet to store all the valuable assets, and one wallet to interact with decentralized application. And if the decentralized application has been malicious and so on, the other wallet is safe. So finally, special thanks to all the organizers of Black Alps and for the different reviewers, Jean-Luc Philippe Masson. You can find his book on Amazon and the Doris employees. And if you want the slide, you can just take a photo of the QR code here, and you will have all the link and so on. So thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. Very interesting talk. Thank you. Q&A is open. Who would like to ask questions to Ryan? Nobody. Yes, Nico, please.
How much JP paid you for this slide?
Avec Kaskim.
I guess that was one question here in the front.
Thanks for the talk. I'm a ledger of a Ledger wallet, but I didn't know that there were some exploits before it. But how secure it is really, actually. I always heard that it was the most secure way to store your crypto, but it looks like it's not. So
for Ledger?
Yeah. Or any cold wallet anyway.
In general, Ledger and Trezor are secure, but in the case of Ledger, the vulnerability was in place only if you use a decentralized application. So in general, it's the reason why it's better to separate the fund between the value asset and the fund used for trading and so on. And also now we have some tool to detect if an application is malicious, typically Blockade is really efficient to detect the attack. But unfortunately, if you use an application and this application is malicious because of a supply chain attack and so on, it's game over.
Anybody else? No, so we will end the part of the conference of Black Alps. Thank you, Ryan, for your great talk again.